Welcome back to the channel. So the project I got going on right now is making a busy board for my daughter. Her 1-year birthday's coming up, and my wife thought that it would be a good present for her. So what a busy board is it's just a board that has all kinds of like little latches and like little doors or whatever you want to put on it, lights, different things that your baby can just sit there and play with and just keep them entertained all day. Just a lot of it is very functional stuff that they'll obviously encounter, as they grow up, just different things around the house. So that's what I'm gonna be working on here. This is gonna be the back, and I already went ahead and cut out these boards. My wife and I are just trying to get a layout of what we want to do. So in the back here, there'll be an area to where I can put batteries and wires and different attachments and things. Then when I flip it over, that's where you'll see the lights and the, different things that we're gonna put on here. So what I want to do first is get this little frame screwed together. And how I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna drill a pilot hole, and I'm gonna end up just screwing these together with regular drywall screws. The bit that I've used is about the same width as the shank of the screw. So it'll be the threads that actually screw in so it won't split out the wood. When I get done, you won't be able to see any of the construction because you'll have this countersunk. The screw will go in, and then they make little wood plugs that I'll plug the hole with and then sand it down. These are a little bit too deep. Maybe I won't go quite as deep in the next ones. When I put the top board on, it'll also get screwed in, and that'll also help hold the frame together. Top board will also get glued. So the board sits on here, and it's just a little bit off along the edge and around the corner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put one screw in, and then I'm gonna move this top board back and forth and catch the bottom board. And you just keep putting screws in, and I'm gonna do that all the way around, and it'll help square up these boards here because they're not perfectly straight. They're a little bit warped, and you saw that when I was putting in these side screws and the board was popping up. But after I got all the boards put together, then they all started to straighten out a little bit, and then this top board's gonna help it all square up and stay straight. Oh yeah, and I wisened up and got another drill. So now I have 3 drills instead of having to change bits constantly. I have it all screwed together. I'm gonna put a mark here and here because I'm gonna take all these screws back out and take this top board off, put some wood glue along the top edge, and I'm gonna screw this back down. Obviously, I don't wanna get it mixed up. So after this dries overnight, then I'm gonna router off the edges and clean everything up, put the wood plugs in, sand it down really well, and then I'll prime it. So the time's ticking for my daughter's first birthday. Got a couple days, well, tonight and tomorrow, and then Saturday, the next day, Saturday, will be her birthday. So we're kind of pressed for time trying to get this done. So I'm trying to get her busy board done here. What I'm gonna do to fill in these holes is I'm gonna put these little dowels in to fill these bigger holes. I'll put a little bit of glue in there, push the dowel in, and then I'm gonna cut it off with like a little multi-tool, I guess they call them. One of these. Just gonna nip it off real fast. Then later on I'll throw a little bit of wood filler on it and then sand it. For the top, I'm just gonna stick a dowel rod in, a little bit of glue with the dowel rod in, tap it down, and then cut it off with the multi-tool. Then after I get done with the plugs, I'm gonna use the router to just put a little bit of a curl on here. I'm just gonna sand these edges, kind of round them a little bit, but we want kind of a nice bevel on the front face. I have my heater blaring in the background because it's pretty cold out here and I'm trying to get this warmed up so I can throw some primer on here. I hope it isn't too distracting. We'll see what it sounds like in the video. I'm gonna go to sand down all these little plugs that I put in, and then I'm gonna throw a coat of primer on it. So here's the basic layout of the busy board. The boss has approved it. So all there is just some little latches, zippers, little door knocker, and some different things. We're actually gonna put some pictures behind these little doors. So when she opens them up, there'll be some pictures of the dogs and cats behind them. These switches will actually work. They'll just be battery powered. And this switch will power these little lights up top, and then this switch will power these three individual little lights. This pencil and wing nuts represent a piece of all thread that should be able to sit there and move the wing nuts back and forth along the all thread. And this represents an hourglass. It's gonna be made out of wood and plexiglass that should be able to move up and down, and it'll be full of beads, and the beads will just move instead of having sand. So my plan is to start cutting out the holes for the lights and getting these switches and stuff installed and get everything pretty much roughed in, and then disassemble it all. And then I'm going to touch up the paint and then put a coat of clear coat on it, and then go ahead and reassemble everything. Then in the back, I'll work on doing the lights, hooking up the battery, and getting everything connected. Okay, making pretty good progress on the busy board. So next, I just have to build some of the individual items, get the hourglass built, and build some trim for around these doors. And this all thread is going to get bent to a U shape and bolted to the board. I'll have to drill the holes for that. And some little holes cause some chips. And it doesn't look like anything's too bad. Most of it'll cover. And there's one big gash that somehow I missed. I'm going to fill that in with wood filler. And then once I get everything drilled and all the construction stuff kind of figured out, then I'll paint it again. I'm going to put a coat of clear coat on it. Okay, so I have this piece of all thread, and part of the busy board is just going to involve these little wing nuts that'll be able to move back and forth. And what I'm going to do is bend this piece of all thread so it'll bolt into the busy board. So it'll just kind of be a U shape. And I'm here in the old garage, which is a complete mess. So I'm trying to find my way around here, try to make some space to get this thing done. I'm going to be using my big torch just to heat this up, so it'll be real easy to bend. Something to take into account whenever you bend things. I want about 2 inches sticking out after the bend. And so even though I've got maybe like 1 3/4 inches in here, I know the bend is actually going to take place out here somewhere. So it's never just going to bend right at 90 degrees right against the vise. It'll be out a little ways regardless of where you heat it. For the hourglass, I just cut out a block of wood. I got this online. I just printed this out, cut it out, traced it on the block of wood. And all I need to cut out are just these little spots here. And then I just need to sand it, make it real nice. Then that's when I'll take the router, go inside, router out a pretty good portion of it. And then I'll take my template, put it on a piece of plexiglass, cut it out, glue it on top of this. I guess before I do that, I gotta put all the little beads inside. So I'll put all the little beads inside, put the piece of plexiglass on, glue it down, and then I'm gonna mask it off and then cut it out a little bit so I can have like a little bit of an edge around the sides. And then I'll paint the whole thing, and then when I peel off the middle part that's masked off, all you'll see is the beads. All right, I'm gonna start out with a small router tip. And I'm gonna cut out the middle, and I just kind of drew my line in the inside, just kind of arbitrarily. And I know if I mess this spot up, I know I gotta start over. So I'm gonna start with this little spot, get this all routed out, and then I'll switch over to the larger bit. So I'm just going to tape this off because I want the glue that I have to adhere to the wood. I'm going to have a couple doors right here on either side of this outlet, and behind them we're just going to put pictures of our animals, maybe a few of our cats and dogs. And what I'm going to do is rip down some thin boards to make the frame, and then just rip down the door on each side, and then we'll just put a hinge on one side and then a latch on the other. That'll give her something else to do. So the doors are 4.5 inches tall, and what I did is I cut this at 4 5/8 because I want a little bit of a gap, and to make sure that I get pretty good corners, what I did is I cut this to the space that I wanted, which is a little bit bigger than the door. I'm going to line that up with the corner, and then I'm going to make a mark at the end. I'm going to do that on all of these. And now it should be pretty consistent when I go to cut the other corner. Here's what the doors will kind of look like. I'm gonna get them primed and painted. So the board's really shiny because I sprayed a clear coat over the paint. There's a flaw here that I had to fix, and I still need to go back and spray the clear coat off after it dries. But I'm gonna go ahead and get the little outlet box in and get my doors built. And then after that, I'll start putting in some of the lights and some different things until this gets completely set up. Then I can spray the clear coat on it and just finish assembling the board. Whenever you're attaching wires to any type of outlet, you want to make sure that you wrap the wire the way the screw is going to turn. So I'm going to wrap this wire clockwise, and then when I turn in the screw, it's also turning clockwise and it'll tighten it down properly. So I have this one wire that's going to go from the battery, and I'm just going to put 3 little pigtails on here that are going to go to these lights right here. By the way, these orange boxes are for low voltage. They're more for like your cable lines and things like that. I'm just using a 12-volt system, just a battery. So I chose to use these instead of an actual electrical box. So when I put my wires in there, nothing's really gonna be touching, and it's only 12 volts anyway. Okay, so this might look like kind of a rat's nest, but I'll kind of give you the basics of what I'm going to be doing. So in a circuit, like I'd mentioned, if you saw my video on AC circuits, obviously the circuit has to be completed for your utilities or whatever you're trying to get to work. So in this case, I'm just trying to get lights to work. So you have your, I'm just gonna call it hot, like the power side, and then you have your neutral. So your power will leave this side of the battery and go wherever you need it to go, and it has to return back here. So that's a basic principle of a circuit. And this is a DC circuit. In your house, you have AC circuits, alternating current. It's just the way the electrons move in the circuit. The way electrons move in a DC circuit, battery circuit, they just flow in one direction. AC is a whole different animal. So we have our hot terminal. So what's gonna happen is power's gonna leave the hot terminal, go up and hit one side of the lights, and then it's gotta make it back down to the neutral terminal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect up all of my neutrals in one line to make it back, and I'm gonna connect all of my hot side, so it'll leave the hot terminal, go up to the switch, and then go up to the hot side. And then the power will just run through each one of the lights. Electricity actually is a little bit complicated as well with parallel circuits and series circuits. This is gonna be more of a series circuit to where everything's just going to basically be in a line. We're just gonna go from the neutral terminal, connect to the first neutral, then the next neutral, the next neutral, next neutral, and go all the way around, and then kind of completing the circuit this way, and then the hots will all kind of come back and go back to the hot terminal. So I'm using LED lights. LED stands for light emitting diode. And it's important to note that on LEDs, power will only flow in one direction. So one direction, you'll get light. Oh, well, you can see that. Come on now. There we go. So you get light, but then if we switch it, you won't get anything. So in LEDs, it's important to know which one is your hot or your positive terminal and which one is your ground or your negative terminal. So with these lights that I bought, the wires actually correspond to the color of the hot or the positive. With these LEDs, all of the blacks are actually your neutral. So I was thinking about soldering all these together, and when I put the lights on my trailer, I absolutely soldered all these together because there's gonna be a lot of movement bouncing around and stuff. Here, I'm just gonna wire nut these up because there isn't gonna be a whole lot of movement back here. Whenever you put these wire nuts on here, you wanna make sure, closer here, twist these wires together pretty well to begin with, and then put the right size of wire nut on here. Okay, so we have our three lights together. Now we're gonna wire in our switch because this is gonna provide the power to the lights, and the switch is just going to disconnect the power to these lights. Okay, three lights down to our switch. Then the switch will be connected up to the power source. Now, just gotta get all the neutrals wired in. And I'm sure I'm messing up the terminology between the hots, neutrals, grounds, everything. I'm sure I'll get a bunch of comments about that. So there's all kinds of theory behind here. The way the power runs in a DC circuit, you'll have conventional current, and then you'll have, you know, your actual current, the way the electrons flow, and it's just a big mess. So if I say something wrong, I'm sorry. I'm sure there's people that are a lot more well versed with electricity than I am, so I'm doing my best. Just made a mistake. Let's see how tore up all these are. She stayed together pretty well. What I didn't do, forgot to put a wire going back. So this wire is what's actually going to connect to the negative side of the battery. And I'm also twisting these, I guess it'd be clockwise. So when you screw the wire nut on, it screws with the wires. Okay, here we go. We have one side done. Now each one of these wires need to get connected because there's 3 little switches on each side. This is the power coming in, and the power comes out in 3 different spots. If you're ever worried about if that wire nut's made a good connection, you can always just give it a gentle tug just to make sure that none of the wires pull out. Okay, we have our 2 positives, our 2 hots that go to the switch. And then when you flip the switch, obviously it sends power through the switch to the light. So these 2 need to be combined. These are just going to each switch. These will be combined, and we'll have a common wire that will go down and attach to the positive terminal of the battery. And I have these little connectors that what they'll do is they'll just push onto the battery. All you do is put the wire in the back and crimp it down. Just twist the wire together so then all the little strands kind of come together, they won't get caught. Push it through. Usually push it through to where you can just kind of see the wire and just crimp it down. That's it. Now you have a good terminal that'll hook down onto the battery. I have my wires hooked up. Okay, those 3 work. This one under here. Those 3 lights work. So I knew this battery was going to be an issue when I bought it. I knew it wasn't going to fit in here just right. So what I'm going to do is grab the router. I'll need to take off maybe 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to go run the router around. It's not going to look pretty, just enough to where I can get this to set in here. And then I don't want it just kind of hanging there. I'll put a block or something underneath it to hold it. And then I have like some little plastic straps I think I'm going to put on to hold this in place. I am going to hit a little bit of metal here, so I hope that doesn't damage the blade too much. All right, that'll definitely work. You saw how I bent this and how it discolored the metal. It's just that zinc kind of burning off there, which zinc is just the galvanizing. So they do make a cold galvanizing that you can spray on here, and it's just like a zinc spray that'll make a galvanize. I mean, it's not as good as the heated galvanizing, but it'll protect the metal. And since I don't have any of the cold galvanizing, I just painted it pink. Okay, I have my latches laid out. I'm gonna go ahead and get this screwed in. And I was hoping to finish this tonight, but the hinges I cut were, they're way too big for this. I got some hinges that were too big, then I got smaller ones and they're still too big. So I'm just gonna work on getting this part done. Still need to get a cover. And the little hourglass that I was gonna make is not gonna work out. It's just not gonna be what I want it to be. So watch the next couple of videos. I'm gonna try to get that done as well, and I'll add it over here on the busy board. Okay, I'm gonna put the pictures in. I got them all cut out. All I'm gonna do is just put just a little bit of spray paint in here. It's the same color I used before to paint these. So I finally found some hinges that will work for this little door here. It took me a little while. And they're a lot smaller than I wanted, but this is what I have to work with. I guess in hindsight, I would have made these a little bit bigger so I could just use one big hinge. So the issue with using multiple hinges is you need to get them lined up such that when the door opens, they won't work against each other. So they need to find a common line. So usually what I'll do is I'll put them on the door just kind of right with the edge. Just kind of like right with the edge there. And then as long as I get those lined up, I can put these in wherever and I know it'll open properly. So you might be able to see right down here some of the paint leaked by, some of the white paint. So all I did is I just took this little plastic container that was for the hinges, and I just sprayed some spray paint in there. Then I just have an art brush. I'm just going to touch it up. So this thing's a lot heavier than it looks. So what I have is these little cleat hangers. You have one that goes on the wall, gives you a little level here, and you hang this to the wall, on the wall, and then this part goes on whatever you're trying to hang, whether it's a big picture or I've hung up some huge carvings. This guy down the road had some really big carvings and he wanted them hung on the wall for some reason. So I went ahead and used these even for that, and it worked really, really well. As long as there's a flat space on the back, like there was a flat space on the carvings that would allow for this cleat to go hang on there properly. So on here, I'm gonna hang this maybe a little bit like an 1/8 inch down so you can't see it. And then this will go on the wall and the cleat goes together just like that. And once this thing's on there, it's pretty steady. So they give you some pretty aggressive screws to go into the wall. So they give you plenty of places to at least find a couple studs if they're 16 inches on center. So you can put these into your studs, and if you think you need any extra strength, you can just put a couple anchors wherever you want. Okay, I'm gonna go talk to the boss, see where she wants to hang this. I don't know. She has all the answers on this. I don't know how high we're gonna hang it or anything. So I'm gonna run up there, get this thing hung up, and I'll go ahead and put these terminals on the battery. And I don't know, this hopefully will last a little while with her tinkering around, turn the lights on and off. And then once I need to charge it, I can just take it down and put it on a battery tender or something. And when the battery does need to be charged, it'll be nice because this will just be on the wall, and I'll be able just to lift it up off from the wall and charge the battery, and then just set it right back on the wall. So there won't be any anchors or anything that actually anchor into it. And when you actually get this set on this cleat, it does hold pretty solid. So I don't think my one-year-old daughter is going to be able to knock the thing over or anything. So this video is taking a little bit longer to get out. Things have been super crazy around here. My side job's been insane. Been super busy with that. My normal job, luckily, isn't too bad. And we lost one of our kitties, but we managed to have Emmeline's birthday party. We got that done. And they came and took care of my door. So that was good. So we've really enjoyed doing the YouTube channel and putting out these videos. Hopefully we can get back on track and get one out about a week. That was our goal. We're way behind. So we really appreciate those of you that have subscribed, and we thank you so much for watching our channel. We'll see you next time. Thanks.